We are weavers of the story. We are keepers of the word. Every story is a treasure. Every story must be heard. Taste the story with your fingers. Now, I know you're enjoying this because that's one of my favorite songs. I wrote it, but I need you to snap 3 times that mimics the banging of my cane. I need you to know, I need to know that you are right with me, that you are all weavers. Taste the story with your fingers. See the story with your ears. Place this story deep within you. It will warm you through the years. Oh, we are weavers of the story. We are keepers of the word. Every story is a treasure. Every story must be heard. Every story must be heard. Every story must be heard. It is my pleasure to be here in the place that I call the home of stories. Today, I'm going to repeat a story because someone asked me to. They were with me yesterday, and they told me that they had not heard that particular Aesop's fable. How many of you all are familiar with Aesop's fables? All right, many of you are. So I want you to go with me on this one. There was a village long, long ago, and in that village, they loved each other. It truly was a family. And whenever a newborn came into their community, they welcomed that newborn. They talked about how wonderful they thought that newborn would become. And they thought about special names and consulted with the families, the family members, and with the mother and the father. And when this newborn child, a boy, was born, it was decided by the mother and the father that this child's name would be Truth. Say Truth. Truth. And so they hoped that he would live up to his name. But the first thing they noticed that he was unusual for them about this child is that he was pretty rambunctious. He came out yelling, screaming, and as soon as they looked at him, he looked at them and he smiled. He was so enjoying himself and enjoying who he was. Well, when they tried to put on some diapers, he kicked those things off and smiled. And whenever they would have him do other things, he just was reluctant to do it. He was obedient in terms of doing the work that he had been told to do, but there was one thing that he really did not enjoy. clothes. He absolutely hated wearing anything on his body. He loved being naked. And as soon as he could crawl, he was crawling down the middle of the village, and everybody, when they saw him, he was such a sweet little thing that they would say, oh, look at that Pinky Pooh. Oh, there he goes, there he goes, there he goes. And some people would even come out and pinch his little bottom, pick him up in the air, kiss him, and pinch his two little cheeks. And he would, you know what he did? He would smile. Well, as time went on, as time does, he was continuing to be buck naked. He would run as soon as his mama dressed him at home. He'd run to the forest, take off everything she had put on, put it in a neat pile, and roll in the grass and enjoy it and run around in the grass, take off those shoes and enjoy every moment of it. And then when he thought nobody would really be looking, he walked down the middle of town. And he learned to say, good morning. He was 6 years old. Good morning. Good morning. I said good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, he was so proud and free. But some people in the village were starting to get uncomfortable with this. He was, after all, 6 years old. And they thought, surely when he's 7 and he goes to school, it'll be different. Well, he turned 7, all right. And on the day he turned 7, they had a party, and right after the party, he was back in the road going, good morning! Good morning! And everyone now was starting to think, there's something wrong with that boy. Mm-mm. And some of the women were saying, his mama should do something about that child. We just cannot take it anymore. He's 7 years old. He should be wearing clothes. Now, he did manage to keep his clothes on at school, and he was smart as a whip, and he always spoke the truth, but not everybody liked it. At the end of school, some days he would run and visit the elders. Now, all of the elders loved that because he was attentive to them. He listened. He respected them. So he would go and visit them, and he'd ask them if there was anything they needed done. They didn't mind he was naked because he was doing work for them. He would clean things in their home. He was so kind. And then one day, one elder set him down at the bottom of her steps, and she said, now, baby, I love you. Yes, I do. You're just as cute as a little pumpkin. Yes, you are. But you got to do something about these nothings you got on. I need you to consider wearing some clothes. And when she said that, she took his face, she brought it into hers, and she kissed him on the forehead. Now, do you have anything to say to me? And he looked her right in the eye and he said, uh-huh, your breath really stinks. Ooh-wee. It's time for you to go home, boy. Get home right now, I say. What'd I do? What did I do? He ran down the steps and he went home, and he felt really bad about it. But after all, he said, I told the truth. I don't understand. He went home, and that day and the next, well, he stopped going to school. He just stayed in the forest most of the time and in the woods, and he played, and children knew he was there, and they would say, hey, Truth. Ooh, hi, Truth, hi, Truth, hi, Truth. And by the time he was 8, he hadn't gone to school in 2 years. He was in that forest, and one day, as he was playing high up in the trees, he looked down and he saw the most beautiful creature walking through in the most gorgeous cloak. The robe was magnificent. Her hair was long and beautiful, and he looked down and he watched her as she came through singing, On into town she went, and as she passed through houses, people started to open their doors and their windows. And she started to sing, good morning, good morning, good morning, how are you? Good morning, and how do you do? And people were feeling so happy with her song and with the way she looked. They even sang, I feel good today, feeling good today. What more can I say? Come in my house and stay, ha, ha, ha. Well, she got to visit several homes. They fed her, they listened to her, they loved on her while she was there. She went from house to house to house, breakfast, lunch, dinner, breakfast, lunch, dinner. She stayed a couple of days, and everyone adored her. And all the while, Truth was hiding in the bushes, watching. And as he watched, he got angrier and angrier. I don't understand why they listen to her. Why do they listen to her? Why do they invite her in? Why do they welcome her? Why do they feed her? He went back to those woods and he stayed that evening. And the very next day, he was up in the trees again. And he saw that beautiful woman with that long flowing coat, or what they used to call a cloak, on her back. And she sauntered through and she sang her songs. Little one, come down here. Stop hiding, you cute little boy. Come on down. He made his way down, and she saw that he was buck naked. Oh, my. You're still cute. Now, why have you followed me all this time, all around? I don't understand it. Well, I can't understand why people are so kind to you. Oh, wait 1 second. We must be introduced. My name is Story. What's yours? My name is Truth. Oh, little one, let me tell you something. People listen to me. People embrace me. People welcome me into their homes and into their hearts because I'm covered with stories. Now listen, you must understand that they will always appreciate truth when you're covered with a story. And from that day on, Story and Truth traveled the world, and truth was always accepted. Good morning, and how do you do? Good morning, and how do you do? And that was just the beginning of Truth and Story. Now, I actually set you up for something, okay? Times have really been difficult. I don't know, at least I'm going to say for me, with people being uncomfortable with the truth. Now, I'm going to say a word, it's a Swahili word, and it's ago. Ago means, do you understand? Are you right with me? And if you do, you answer ame. Say ame. Ame. Ago. Ame. I want to know that you know what you're saying. Ago means I'm sharing a truth. Ame means I understand. Ago? Amen. Ago. Amen. No, I said ago. Amen. Ago. Amen. Ago. Amen. I got one agoa in here. Your job is ame. You understand? Ago. Amen. All right. The story I'm going to share with you is a culmination of about 10 slave narratives. And I put them all together, pieces of them together. It's the truth. I've been on this property for well over, I don't even know. It feels like I was born here, but I wasn't. I came here as a little girl. And I've been here, I've seen a lot of things that broke my heart. But this is the life I was born into. So I reckon I gotta do what's best with it. But this morning when Master come in and he say, Zenobia, I got an auctioning taking place a little later in the day, and the auctioneer, he's sick. He can't come. I need somebody to sell off these slaves. And I want you to do the work. If you don't agree to help out today by do the auctioning, I'll sell you off with him. Well, when I heard that, my heart sunk, because many of the folk on this plantation, they my own kin. But I knew what the consequences were, and that certainly wouldn't help. Master asked me to do it, so I did. That sun is bright and plenty hot. Let's get down to business, get home tonight, bid 'em in. Auctioning slaves is a mighty high art. Bring that young gal Roy. Ha! She's good for a start, bid 'em in. Here's a real goodbye, only about 15. Her great-grandmammy was a Doheny queen. Just look at her face, she sure ain't homely. Like Sheba in the Bible, she's black, but a comely. Bid 'em in, bid 'em in, bid 'em in. She's good in the field, she can sew and cook. Strip her down, Roy, let the gentlemen's look. She's good up front and ample behind. Examine her teeth if you got a mind. Bid 'em in, get 'em in, bid 'em in. She's good in the field, she can sew and cook. Strip her down, Roy. Let him get another look. Her teeth are good. Her body's fine. Make a darn good breeder. If she was mine, bid 'em in, get 'em in, bid 'em in. Gonna start the bid at 3. Do I hear 3? 350. 4. At $400, she's a bargain show. 400. 425. 500. Now look alive. Bid 'em in, get 'em in, bid 'em in. Don't mind them tears. That's one of her tricks. 550 to the bid. Now who'll say 6? 550? 6? 650. 650's the bid. At $700, gonna let her go. 700? At 700, she's going. Gone. Bid 'em in, get 'em in, bid 'em in. Take it down, Roy. Now, y'all looking at me like I'm the devil. I ain't no devil. Because what y'all don't know is that I hears that old Herod herself, old Moses, gonna come tramping through this land. And she's going sneaking in some of those plantations. I just sold him off to the Beaumont plantation. And what y'all don't know is old Moses is coming through. She gonna snatch up as many that wants to run. I be bidding them in, all right. Bidding them in to freedom. Bid 'em in, get 'em in, bid 'em in. Thank you for listening to that one. That's a difficult tale. It's a tale of truth. But you know what? Not everything was like that. As time passed on, things happened. I call these my mama tales. It's called Mama Say tales. Say Mama Say.
Mama say.
Oh, come on. Say it like you from Georgia. That's where my mama was. Mama Say.
Mama say.
Thank you. Mama Say. She taught me lots of things. And one of the things that I learned when I told her that I thought that I wanted to become a storyteller later in life. I'd gone to school, got, degrees, and I got an education degree for them because my mom and dad said, oh, it's great, you're a great singer, you're a great pianist, and all of that, but we think you need to get a degree in education just for the in case. Now, in case things didn't work out or in between, I could actually teach. But I knew my heart was in storytelling. My heart was in music, and my heart was in music and movement. My mama said to me, I really don't mind you being a storyteller because we come from a family of that. Your daddy, me. I just would mind you being a liar. Don't lie in your stories. Stay as close to the truth as you can. She said, and share a part of our history, share a part of who we are. And so this story is her story, my mama say story. My mama was born in 1913 in Milledgeville, Georgia. Anybody around here from Milledgeville? Good, I can tell the story. My mama used to say that they lived not in Milledgeville proper, but they lived at the skirts of Milledgeville, okay? Because, and you go look this up, because they would not allow African Americans, people of color, to live in the city. That didn't come around until, well, shortly after the war, 1865, 1867. But there was a tax involved. If you were a freed slave, you had to pay $20 every year in taxes just because you were freed. And my mama had 9 people in her family, so you do the math. They didn't have the money. And many of the people that were African American actually couldn't afford to live in town because they had so many rules about what you could build, how you could build it, and where you could build it. And so they lived around the skirts. And my mama said, now whenever I say my mama said, or when I say my mama said, you're going to say, what she say, what she say. Are you ready? My mama said,
What she said, what she said.
Oh, I love that. You're ready? So if I say what she said, you're going to say what she said. If I said he said, you're going to say what he say, what he say. 2 times. One more time. What he say, what he say. If a bunch of people say something, you're going to lean forward. You got to lean forward because then I know you seriously want to know. They said what they say, what they say. Okay. So my mama said.
What she said, what she said.
Oh, you got to be faster. What she say, what she say. You got to be anxious for the news. My mama said.
What she said, what she said.
My mama said that basically in their town there was a woman, her name was Sister Jameson. And Sister Jameson was their little, it wasn't a town, their little village. Their little village was on the outskirts, as I told you, and Sister Jameson lived there. She about 93, and she talked and told everything she saw or thought she heard. And everybody loved Sister Jameson, but she had a problem with her mouth. Now, I have to tell you a little bit more about the little village down there. I already told you it was some ways off from Milledgeville, so it was Milledgeville skirts, but there, it was close to the creek. It was in the swampy area. So whenever it rained, everybody in my mama's town, they had to make sure there was a ditch around everybody's house that completely covered it. And then you were responsible for making that ditch low and deep enough. And then you were responsible for getting your pieces of wood to lay down so you could cross over, go up to the road, and make it into town in order to work. Ago means, are you with me? Ame is your part. Ago?
Amen.
Okay, you right with me. Anyway, Sister Jameson was there. And Sister Jameson was 93, like I said. And she went around and she would tell everything she heard. And some of the things she heard, even though it was the truth, it shouldn't have been told. Y'all know people like that, right? And so, basically, the church, they had a little church there. They decided they had to do something about it. They loved her. She was their heart. But, you know, you gotta bring things in, everything in the church had to be in decency and order. That's what my mama said. Thank you. One, what she said. Basically, they told Sister Jameson that she had to bring her mouth under control. Otherwise, they had to put a bit in there like with the horses. They weren't going to really do that, but she needed to bridle her tongue and not say everything she thought was the truth. Well, this was so hard for her. And the church members, if they knew she was about to tell something that was borderline gossip, they would have to do this. Only God knows, sister. Only God. Everybody do it with me. Only God knows, sister. Only God. That would let her know she needed to shut up. Now, my mama said that Sister Jameson got so frustrated. She wasn't even walking with her usual pep. She would walk around like, I wish I could just talk like I want to talk. Oh, Lord. Oh. And one day, Sister Jameson was out for her walk, and she was walking and feeling mighty lonely. And she came right close to the pastor's house, and she sat down at the bench that was there. And then she said, Lord, help me, Lord. I said, she said, Lord, help me, Lord. And she sat down on that bench. She leaned back against the wall of that house, and she leaned her tired head against that wall, and then she leaned her tired ear against that wall. And just then, she heard Pastor come in the bedroom, and he said, darling, thank you. He said, darling, that's what he called his loving wife, the first lady of the church. Darling, would you come in here, please? I need to show you something. And as soon as his darling wife came in, first lady, she came in, and he had money spread all over the bed. And she said, She said, oh, Lord, what is this? And he said, He said, darling, this is the offering. This is the biggest offering we ever got. And in the offering bag, there was an envelope. And the envelope said, for the pastor. But when I opened the envelope, there was nothing in it. What you think, darling? Do you think this money is for us? What you think? And she said, She said, oh, Lord, I'm trusting the Lord, and I'm trusting you to do the right thing. All I got to say is, whatever you do, do quickly, and don't let the left hand know what the right hand is doing. And he said, you sure give good advice. Well, just then, Sister Jameson jumped up and said, Lord, we got a thief. Thief. Oh, Lord, I gotta tell somebody. Oh, what he going? Oh, Lord, what he gonna do? What he gonna do? And she started running around, and all the houses were in a round circle. So the first house she came to from Pastor's house was Deacon Nickerson. They called him Deacon Nick. Say Deacon Nick. I said Deacon Nick. Deacon Nick. Thank you. And Deacon Nick was in his house, and Sister Jameson, she was sitting on the front step, just going, oh, Lord. She got louder and louder, and Brother Nick, Deacon Nick, comes out. He opens the door. What's wrong with you? And she said, I can't say. It's too heartbreaking. And I remember what y'all told me. I can't say. But I was sitting next to Pastor's house. I sat down. I leaned my head back. I turned my head just because it was tired. And my ear fell on the wall. And I heard Pastor say, you want to know what he said? What did he say? He said that the money on here, and then he calls the first lady. He had all that food, no, not the food, what's wrong with my mind? All that money on the bed, and he say to his wife, what did he say? He say, what I'm supposed to do with this? Is it for us or is it for the church? And you know what she said?
What she say? What she say?
She said that whatever you do, do quickly and don't let the
Right hand know the left hand.
Oh, I would never want to tell you this, but that's what she said. And Deacon Nick, he was furious. I said, I got to go get the other brothers. I'm going to the deacon board. So he took her hand and they went around to every single house and they got there. They pulled everyone together. They went in and they told everyone, and then they all decided. What did they say?
What did they say? What did they say?
They said, we knew he was a thief. Yeah, supposed to be reformed. Let's go get him. Tie him up. And if he still got the money, we gonna get it back. A wolf in sheep's clothing. They ran to the house. They knocked on the door. And when they got there, she opened the door. What is this? Because they had gotten a whole crowd of folk. And they said, well, Sister Jameson said.
What she say? What she say?
She said, you stole all the money and you took it and we don't know what's happened to it and now you got to pay. Well, First Lady said, well, Pastor's not here. Well, you step right here on the porch. That's what Deacon Nick said. And they brought her out. And then, just as they were interrogating her more of the people started yelling, you are thieves, you! And they were yelling when all of a sudden, Pastor, he crosses the boards over the ditch. What's going on? They didn't even give him a chance to speak. They lifted him, put him on a horse, put a noose around his neck. You thief, you thief. Sister Jameson told us the truth. We know what you did with the money we collected last Sunday. And the pastor said, I got something to say.
What is that? What is that?
I said, I got something to say.
What is that? What is that?
Just loosen the noose a bit and I'll tell you. They did. Please reach into my pocket. And they did. Deacon Nick pulled out the piece of paper, a bank statement. And Pastor said, it's all true. I just went off to the bank immediately, just so I didn't have that much money. I deposited every cent and 50 cents that one of you deacons dropped at the last offering. I turned in $25.50, the most we've ever raised. Everyone was so upset. And they looked at Sister Jameson and they said, you liar, you storyteller. And just as she heard that, she grabbed her and dropped dead. And the very next Sunday, they had her funeral before the service started. Everyone walked by her casket. And most people said, What did they say?
What they say? What they say?
It's a shame. What a lovely lady. What a dear heart. Huh. But she sure was a gossip. Yeah, I wonder where she went. And they all were talking. And when the pastor stood up, he said, I have one. Thank you. The pastor stood up.
What did he say? What did he say?
He said, I have one more thing to say.
What did he say? What did he say?
But before he could, Sister Jameson popped up in that casket. She sat up and she looked at everybody and she said, he will not speak for me. I got something to say.
What she say? What she say?
Well, I can't tell you that, because God only knows. I appreciated those tales my mom would share, and she would lead it out, and she said, now, whenever you want to think about what you might say that might be questionable, think about Sister Jameson. So I leave that with you. You know, I'm going to close with a quick story that I absolutely love, and it comes from spiritual times as well. Would you repeat after me? Our roots, our stories, our dreams, God's glory. Our roots, our stories, our dreams, God's glory. There was a time when there was a group of people who knew their heritage. They knew where they came from. Traditions weren't just traditions, they were meaningful. Do you all have any like that?
Yes.
Ooh, what's yours? Family. Some traditions in my family were at Memorial time. You know Memorial Day? All of us would get together and we would go to the grave sites of those who had gone before. And we would, I see some heads going, mm-hmm. We would go and we would stand there. And they took me there as a young child. I remember going to Aunt Emma's grave site. And whoever had a story about Aunt Emma would tell it. Anybody who had a story about Uncle Bubba would tell it. And we'd all get back in our cars and we'd go to the next place and we stand around. Those traditions were real for me. And we spoke in our own language. And even though my dad, worked at Howard University for a while, and he was a professor in his own right, a brilliant man. My mom was brilliant too. They would play with us with English and in our own vernacular, in our own Ebonics at home. And my dad and mom would say, now you may not be able to get a job with this language, but it's safe to speak it here. Ago, amen. Ago, amen. Well, there was a place like that. There was a time that this place existed. But as time went on, people forgot about their traditions. They forgot to honor the elders. Do you see that sometimes now? There was one in this village that was so old. That they had forgotten his name. They just called him the Ancient One. Say Ancient One. Ancient One. And the Ancient One, they thought was so odd because he had to be well over 100. He would get up every day and he would smile at everyone, but he didn't talk that much. Some folks said that he felt that his life should be an example. You should live by what you saw in him. So he would get up in the morning and he'd go to the fields where he had some things planted, and he would pick whatever was available there and he would bring it back to his house and then he would cook it. And mostly he ate vegetables and grains. Once in a while he ate some meat, but he never went around and asked anybody for anything, and he certainly didn't buy anything out. Everybody thought he was odd. And he started to always use gestures to show how he cared. And this meant he loved you dearly. Come on. He loved you dearly. This meant, You know what that meant. This meant, I'm praying for you. Well, one day, he went out to till his gardens again, and there were children that were there, running wild, screaming and yelling and pulling up his turnips and onions and kicking them and throwing them and taking tomatoes and throwing them and playing back and forth with each other because they had really no structure. They had nothing to do. They weren't reading anymore. They were just making up the rules as they went along. And the parents weren't parenting. The parents thought, oh, they should just be children. Let them have fun. But when the Ancient One showed up at his gardens, he saw them all just jumping around and throwing away the food that he had worked so hard to grow. He stood there and he watched them until one little boy said, look at the Ancient One. He's so old. Look at him. But the Ancient One wasn't bent over. He was walking tall. They watched him. He looked at them. He held up one finger and he did like this. No one ever told them what to do. What are you talking about, old man? And a few of them even threw things at him. He picked up what was thrown and he put it in his basket. And he put a basket full of what he could salvage onto the side. And then he went to a new row in the ground. He dug a hole. He reached in his pocket. He got a seed and he dropped it in. He pushed the dirt over. And when he did this. Everybody. That's right. And they said, oh, he's making a game. And the next thing, he finished a whole row. He went all the way home. They followed him. And when they got there, he went in. He picked up his basket. He prepared a meal. He came out with a little square thing. He sat them down and he gave them food. And he opened that square thing, which we know is called and he showed it to them. It had pictures. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, that looked like my papa. He passed the book all around and then he did this. Come on. That's right. But he didn't say a word. And then he looked up in the sky and he looked at them and he did this. Come on. And then he whispered in their ear, you can be and do anything. Whisper that to somebody here. Come on. And they all smiled. And when they looked up, they saw the stars, and the stars seemed to reflect in their eyes. And he did this. Then he picked up everything. He went in quickly and sat in the window, and they were still sitting there, amazed. And he did this. Come on. And they watched him as he went in. Knees. They'd never seen that. And then he got in the bed and he blew them a kiss. Come on. They ran home. Oh! What did you learn? I learned. Come on. I don't know what it means though. Here goes. Faster. Faster. And from that day on, those children went back to their homes. They started opening the books that were cast away, the ones that had dust on them. And they read and they talked to each other. Some of them had to learn how to read. And then others started to draw and paint. And they started to make up poems. And shock of all shocks, they started trying to learn their native tongue. They sang. They had all sorts of stuff. And at the end of the day, they did this. They didn't know why, but they did it. But their parents and some people in that village didn't like it. Our children are behaving so ridiculously. Have you seen them? They are just moving around and doing things. They don't sit and play games anymore. They just do this odd sort of thing. I think it's because of the Ancient One. Let's tell them they can no longer be around him. And so they did. And time went on. They were not allowed to go and visit him ever again. At first, he just thought, well, maybe they've got things to do. But after a month passed, then too, he started to think, maybe it's time for me to go. Maybe I'm the Ancient One because I've stayed too long. And that day, he went to his bed and stayed there. And when the children heard about it, when they finally heard about it, they became so upset. They ran to his home, and they didn't see him around. They knocked on the door, and they didn't see him. And then they went to the window, and they opened it, and there he was in the bed. But he was much smaller, and he wasn't really able to focus on them. They burst through the doors in the front, and they went all the way in, and they said, oh, Ancient One, why? Why are you laying in the bed? There's things to do. We don't know what the last thing is. We know that this is our roots. Our stories. Our dreams. But what is this? And the Ancient One looked at them and he said, I want you to know that I am ready to go, and that you are my roots. You have my stories. You have your own dreams. And I hope you will live in God's glory. Roots. Story. Come on, go with me. Dreams. Glory. Our roots. Our stories. Our dreams. God's glory will give us strength. Come on, everyone, to go on. Come on, repeat after me. Our roots, our roots, our stories, our dreams. God's glory will give us strength to go on. I need to hear you. Come on. It's our roots, roots, our stories, our stories, our dreams, our dreams. God's glory will lead us through any storm. Repeat after me. It's our roots, our roots, our stories, our stories, our dreams, our dreams. God's glory will give, come on, us strength to go on, to go on. Now listen, now the story of the middle passage is a tale that is told, and it shaped my very fiber, but it chills the soul. May the stories of my ancestors forever be told, for their truth, their beauty, their goal. With me, our roots, our stories, our dreams. Come on. God's glory will lead us through any storm, any storm. Oh, it's our roots, it's our stories, our dreams. God's glory will give us strength to go on. Now listen, now I'm standing in the shadow of the people I've known, and the courage that sustains us isn't fully my own. Thank you, mothers, sisters, brothers, for the seeds you have sown, for I know I'm not standing alone. Everyone, it's my roots, it's my stories, it's my dreams. God's glory will lead us through any storm, any storm. I don't hear you. It's my roots, it's my story, it's my dreams. God's glory will give us strength to go on. Now stand up and do it like you mean it. It's my roots, it's my story, my dreams. God's glory will lead us through any storm, any storm. Oh, it's my roots. Come on, it's my story, my dreams. God's glory will give us strength to go on. Will give us strength, strength to go on. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate